It was a remarkable quality of the ghost that, notwithstanding his giant size, he could accommodate himself to any place with ease, which is quite convenient, as otherwise parts of this story would be difficult to explain. Perhaps it was the pleasure that the good spirit had in showing off this power of his that led him straight to Scrooge's clerk's, for there he went, and took Scrooge with him, holding to his robe, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch. "This house is tiny. Is this where Bob lives?" "Of course. With his tiny wages, this is all he can afford." Just at the very moment that one then ended, and another then began, Mrs. Cratchit entered the tiny dining-room, carrying tiny dinner plates to place on the tiniest of tables. Scrooge was shocked to see the family looking so poor. "I'm shocked to see the family looking so poor. Their clothes are so old, and they don't have much food, and their houses are right they are poor, but they love each other, and they are happy. They are poor in money, but rich in love." Just as Mrs. Cratchit and assorted younger Cratchits were setting the table, the eldest Cratchit daughter, Martha, arrived.
"Why, bless your heart alive, my dear, how late you are!" "Oh, we had a deal of work to finish up last night, and had to clear away this morning, Mother." "Well, never mind, so long as you are here. Oh, here, listen. Your father and Tiny Tim should be here any moment now. Wouldn't it be an hilarious prank if you were to hide and pretend you're not coming today?" "No, that would be a rubbish prank. Just do it, you miserable little bastard."
So Martha hid herself, and in came Bob, with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim! He bore a crutch, and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. Bob sat Tiny Tim on a tiny seat in a tiny corner in the tiny room of the tiny house, and took off his scarf, which was quite big, actually.
"Why,
Where's our Martha?"
not coming."
Not coming? Not coming upon Christmas Day? But I've bought her a handbag.
"A handbag?"
Humbug. Oh well, there'll be more of that tiny goose to go around. And at least we won't have to listen to her banging on about how hard she works like she does every Christmas dinner. Oh gosh, she's a right. She's behind me, isn't she? Merry Christmas, Father. Merry Christmas, Martha. I knew you were there all the time. That was just my little prank. No, Ghost. He always was a little pranker.
"Your little prank isn't funny, Bob. It's just an oyster."
An oyster? Why are you talking about oysters all of a sudden? Are we starting our festive feast with oysters this year?
"Well, it didn't say oysters, but we are, as it happens."
Ah, oysters. The poor man's protein.
"Quite. Poverty and oysters always seem to go together."
Yeah. Oh, and is that goose cooked, dear?
"I think your goose is cooked, Bob."
Get stuffed.
"You what?"
I'll get stuffed. I was trying to say I'll get stuff in the goose with onions, sage and oranges. But you interrupted me, you big fat pudding.
"What did you say?"
Oh, I was trying to say your big fat Christmas pudding should be ready soon too, dear. I can't wait.
"You just have to wait for your just desserts."
Ooh, is it plum pudding this year, darling? You know you love to get your gums around my plums.
Sure, have we got spotted dick? Well, it's a long time since I've seen it, but you might have.
Hey, what? You're nuts.
You what?
You're nuts.
Hey, don't be cheeky.
You're chestnuts. We need to start roasting them soon.
Not too soon. Remember, you burned your nuts last year.
Ooh, yeah, I remember. I sat too close to the fire, didn't I? Ooh.
Oh, and don't eat any of that ham, darling. I found a bug on it.
Ugh, a humbug?
Humbug.
Ugh. I wish Mrs. Beaton or somebody would publish a book of household management or something, so we'd know how to avoid poor domestic arrangements such as this.
Hey?
Oh, never mind all that flummadiddle, Bob.
Go and make one of those jugs of hot gin and lemons you make every Christmas.
Good idea, darling. Here, where do you keep your jugs? In your big chest?
On second thoughts, Bob, don't get my jugs out just yet. Wait till the kids are gone to bed. Here, tell me, how did little Tim behave in church this morning?
As good as gold, and better. Bob Cratchit lifted Tiny Tim from his tiny chair in the tiny corner and carried him to a tiny seat at the tiny table. The tiny boy was pale and thin, and carried a tiny crutch. What's wrong with him, Spirit? Why doesn't he walk? Is he lazy? No, he's snot. He's snot? No, not he's snot. He's not. He's not lazy. He's very sick. His name is Tiny Tim, and his parents... You know his parents, don't you, Bob? Bob Cratchit, and his wife. You know he works for you. His parents don't have money for a doctor, so maybe he will die. Die? But there must be something that can be done. Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live. I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. Oh no, kind spirit! Say he will be spared. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, he will not live. Ho 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 ho, what then? If he be like to die, he had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. At that moment, or at least a fraction of a second after that moment, Scrooge felt sorry and ashamed. I feel sorry and ashamed. Then, or rather the moment after then, Scrooge heard someone call his name. God bless Mr. Scrooge, the founding father of this fine festive feast. I think we can all thank him for this lovely Christmas dinner, even if it is tiny, Tim.
Thank Mr. Scrooge? I'd like to spank Mr. Scrooge.
Please, dear, let's not have a kerfuffle.
Not in front of the children.
The founding father of the feast, indeed. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
Oh dear, the children. Christmas Day. Let's have a toast for Christmas and Mr. Scrooge.
Right, I'll make the toast. Where's the bread?
Not that kind of toast, dear. Please lift your bottle and glass and join me in a toast for Christmas and for Mr. Scrooge. A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears, and God bless us.
A Merry Christmas to us all. God bless us, everyone.
Well said, Tiny Tim.
Yes, well said, Tiny Tim.
Yes, well said, Tiny Tim. Meanwhile, it was getting late.
It's getting late. Ho, 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 ho.
The ghost took Scrooge hither and thither, and whither they went they didn't dither, as on the snow they did slither. But when Scrooge spoke he began to blither, till the ghost gave a look which made him wither. So Scrooge played a carol upon his zither.
Stop going all rhymey. Oh, Scrooge hates that.
He can't hear me.
Well, all right. I hate it. Now just get on with narrating the narration like a good narrator, will you?
And the ghost took Scrooge hither and thither, so he could see how people celebrated Christmas. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. Scrooge was surprised to see how people who were poor enjoyed being with their families and friends.
I'm surprised to see how people who are poor enjoy being with their families and friends.
Suddenly, without warning, they were standing in a room full of happy people celebrating Christmas.
Look at this room full of happy people celebrating Christmas.
Oh, look! It's my nephew, Fred. He's having a party. Scrooge's nephew, his wife, and the guests were all gathered round the piano, looking longingly at it and wishing that one of them knew how to play the bloody thing. Uncle Scrooge said he hated Christmas. Oh, he should be ashamed. He's a good man of business, but it has to be said, he's not a good man.
All right then, I'll say it, he's not a good man.
Yes, thank you. Oh, he may be very rich, but he makes a poor uncle. True, true. But his money is useless. He doesn't do anything with it.
He didn't come to eat with us tonight because he's busy counting his money.
Pinching his pennies. And misering.
What?
What?
Misering. Isn't that what misers do?
Oh dear God.
Anyway, he preferred to be angry at us than to have fun with us.
Let's face it, no one likes him.
Oh, let's face it. No one likes you.
Let's face it, no one likes me.
No, and they never will, unless the future changes.
How can I change the future? The room disappeared, and Scrooge and the ghost continued their journey. They travelled to faraway lands and visited many countries. They visited places where sad people felt happy, poor people felt rich, and sick people felt hope. It was a long night, and everything happened in just that one night, not in 3 nights as Jacob Marley said, and he was supposed to be so good with numbers. As they neared the end of their journey, Scrooge noticed that while he remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older, clearly older, and his hair had turned grey. Us? Let me finish. Are spirits' lives so short?
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight.
Well, before you pop your clogs, I'd like to thank you for what you have shown me tonight. But really, you're showing me just a little more than I hoped to see just now.
What do you mean?
I mean, I see something strange and not belonging to yourself, protruding from your skirts.
Whoops! Sorry about that. These are loose-fitting robes, you know. They just fall right open sometimes. Can't be helped.
What?
Oh, excuse me.
No, not that! I wasn't talking about... Oh, dear God! Put it away, man! Oh, I hadn't even noticed that.
Oh. Well, what were you talking about?
That! Where your feet should be. What the hell is that? Is it a foot or a claw?
It might be a claw for the flesh there is upon it. Look here. Oh, man. Look here.
From the foldings of its robe, the spirit brought 2 children, wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. They knelt down at its feet and clung upon the outside of its garment. They were a boy and a girl, yellow, meagre, ragged, scowling, wolfish, but prostrate too in their humility. Where graceful youth should have filled their features out and touched them with its freshest tints, a stale and shriveled hand, like that of age, had pinched and twisted them and pulled them into shreds. Where angels might have sat enthroned, devils lurked and glared out menacing. No change, no degradation, no perversion of humanity in any grade. Through all the mysteries of wonderful creation has monsters half so horrible and dread. These creatures, these children, Spirit, are they yours?
They are man's, and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. This boy is ignorance. This girl is want. Beware them both, and all of their degree. But most of all, beware this boy. For on his brow I see that written which is doom. Unless the writing be erased. Deny it. Slander those who tell it ye. Admit it for your factious purposes, and make it worse, and bide the end.
Have they no refuge or resources?
Are there no prisons?
The bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.